Hello and welcome back to Ready Steady DIY. If it's your first time here, thank you for joining us. If you're already subscribed, thank you for subscribing. Well, today I want to talk about the Microjig Grr-ripper. The Microjig Grr-ripper is a push block that helps you push material through your table saw. The company claims it helps with safety in that it protects your hands against blade contact and in that it controls the wood better than traditional push sticks or push blocks to help fight against kickback. So in this week's video, I'm going to unbox and assemble the Microjig Grr-ripper. The assembly process isn't all that hard, but there are a lot of steps. So I'll show you how I did it, and at the end, I'll give you my general impressions of it as a tool in terms of build quality, that kind of thing. Then, just because I haven't had it long enough to give it a full review, over the course of the week, I'm gonna put it through its paces, try it on a project, and at the end of that week, in next week's video, I'll let you know how it goes. But for now, let's get opening the box. So the first challenge with the Microjig Grr-ripper is you have to put it together. I had read online that a lot of people purchased this product and didn't get all the parts in the box. This seems to be a pretty common problem, but I got all the parts. Right on the top, there is an excellent user's manual. I gotta say, read the manual. The manual that I got with my gripper is better than the manual I got with my table saw. It is longer, it is more comprehensive, it contains a lot more safety instruction, the illustrations are good, and the written language is excellent. Basically what comes with the GR100 model, the base model, the one that I have here, you get a handle, you get a main body, you get a center leg, you get a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch side leg, and you get a balance support. Along with that, you get the instruction manual, you get a warranty card, and you get all the hardware. I think you want to check before you start putting it together that you have all the hardware. So that includes 8 smaller washers, 2 larger washers, 6 little rubber O-rings, 2 1/2 inch green thumb screws, 2 green round knobs, 2 1/4 20 oval nuts, 2 1 inch green dovetail T-bolts, 2 larger screws, which are 1/4 20 screws and 3/4 inches long, and 4 smaller screws, which are 1/2 inch long. I checked, I made sure I had everything there, I was ready to go. So the first part of the assembly is attaching the handle to the main body. This is where the bigger 1/4 20 screws come into play. Basically what you do is you grab the 2 bigger screws and the 2 bigger washers, and you slide the washer over the screw, and then you insert each screw into the holes of the handle. They slide right down in there, it's pretty easy to get them in. Next step, you want to take the 1/4 20 oval nuts. These are nuts that are going to slide into the T-slots of the main body eventually. So because of that, you don't want to screw them on all the way. You want to take the beveled part, face it up, screw it onto the tip of your 1/4 20 bolt, thread it up a couple threads and leave it sitting there. Do it to the other side too. So now you've got both 1/4 20 oval nuts on the tips of the 1/4 20 screws. And then you just want to slide the whole rigmarole onto the main body so that the oval nuts slide into the channels of the T-slots and then tighten the handle down. Because you put the beveled part up, the oval nuts are going to grab into that T-slot perfectly. Okay, so now the handle's attached to the main body. I got to move on to the next step, which is putting on the center leg. The center leg is the biggest of all 3 legs, so you grab that guy, and then you grab your 2 green dovetail T-bolts, 2 of the smaller washers. If your package had everything, you've only got small washers remaining. And then 2 of what they call in the manual green round knobs. There's only 2 of those. You take the green dovetail T-bolts, you insert them into the center leg from the inside going out. You slide the washer onto the bolts, and then you take your green round knob and attach it to the outside. Basically, the head of the green dovetail T-bolt is what's going to slide into the channel of the T-slot on the outside of the main body. So you slide it on, tighten the knobs, and now you've got your center leg attached to the bottom of your main body of the gripper. Moving on, we got 2 more legs. There's the 1/4 inch leg and the 1/2 inch leg. According to the manual, it doesn't matter which side you put which on, so you can choose. There are brass inserts on the side of the main body of the gripper, and basically each side attaches to those brass inserts by taking 2 of the smaller screws, 2 washers, and 2 of the little rubber O-rings that they include in the package. From time to time, I suppose a user is going to take these side legs off. So the O-ring is there to capture the screw into each of the side legs so that when you take the side legs off, you don't lose the screws. I can't tell you enough how fiddly this gets. It's a little bit annoying putting it together, but it is a good idea. Obviously, you don't want to lose the screws and find yourself trying to use one of the legs with like 1 screw that's really reefed down or something like that. So losing a screw would be kind of disastrous. So it's good that they capture them, but putting it together can be a little bit fiddly. If you've got larger fingers, you're going to find it to be a little bit cumbersome. I don't have larger fingers, I still found it to be cumbersome. So you put the washers on the screw, you insert it into the hole, you slide the rubber O-ring onto the tip of the screw, and you do that for both screw holes on both sides. Now would be a good time to make sure that you're practicing cross-threading safety. The brass inserts are made of brass. That's a pretty soft metal. And while it's not a huge danger that you're going to cross thread these, you really don't want to, especially when you're just getting started with your new tool. I have a video on cross threading. If you want to see what it's all about, I'll put a link right here. So now moving on to the balance support, that attaches to the outside of one of the outside legs. You'll see there are brass inserts there as well. And they give you a couple little green thumb screws and some washers, again with some O-rings too. You put the washer onto the screw, you put the screw through the channel on the side of the balance support, and then you slip the little O-ring onto the tip of the thumb screw, and that captures it into the balance support so you can't lose it. And then you screw that whole rigmarole into the brass insert on the outside face of one of the side channels, and you're good to go. Generally speaking, I gotta say, as I was putting it together, I thought the gripper was pretty well built. In my opinion, looking at it thus far, you could drop it off your table saw. It probably won't crack. It's pretty hardy, but the hardware feels a little bit chintzy. The knobs are small and they're made of plastic. I understand why that is, especially the plastic parts that go into the T-slots. If they were made of metal, they'd chew up the inside of the T-slot. Probably wouldn't work. But I work with a lot of little knobs in my line of work. You know, I work in the film and television industry, so I see a lot of 1/4-20 everything. And when the handle on a knob could be made of metal and they're not made of metal with a nice knurl on the outside, that's something I notice. These little plastic knobs are probably too small. And because of the way they're made, my feeling is that if you're using this in any temperature that's cold in any way, it's gonna be kind of hard to tighten. Your fingers are gonna skid off it. It doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. It feels a little cheap, but the tool itself feels quite good. And when you make all the components out of plastic, there are some advantages, some weight advantages, that kind of thing. But I gotta say, since it's pretty obvious the company knows that losing one of the bolts or one of the screws is gonna render the tool a lot less safe to use, I kind of wish, especially since these parts are plastic, that they just included some spares. In fact, you could have a whole bag of spares. Like it wouldn't cost that much. You could put a whole bag of spares into a sealed bag and just say gripper spares on the front. You could put it into your toolbox and be ready in case one of these O-rings fails and you lose a screw. It would be pretty cheap to do. I think one of the main knocks on the gripper is its cost. And I think for the company, if they included spares, it wouldn't cost them that much. But in the end, it might be an effective goodwill gesture towards purchasers. But there are no spares in my box, so I'm just gonna go ahead with what I got. And what I got is this. This is what a completed Microjig Grr-ripper GR100 looks like. So first impression, when you put it in your hand, the handle is perfect. It's exactly the right shape, exactly the right size. I feel pretty confident holding it. The pads feel very grippy. I gotta say, I was worried about that. One thing about that is because it does grip and it grips wood pretty well while it's fresh, obviously then it's gonna grip sawdust just as well. So I expect this is gonna suck up a lot of the sawdust and become less grippy over time. This is one of the great complaints about the gripper, that it starts out pretty good and then eventually becomes pretty slippy. The company recommends that you clean it with 91% isopropyl or some kind of denatured alcohol. I think the only way to use this tool is just to make sure that it's clean and make sure that it grips well. They do sell replacement legs, so if yours get worn or you find that you just can't clean it enough to get grip, you can get new ones. Over the course of this week, I'll be using the Microjig Grr-ripper on a project. Next week's video, I'll let you know how that goes. But in the meantime, do you have a Microjig Grr-ripper? Do you like it? Is it something you bought and never use? Is it something you love? Is it something you hate? Leave all those comments in the comment section below. I really want to hear. Table saw safety is something I take pretty seriously. So if you've got comments, please feel free to leave them. And as always, if you like this video, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to think about that too. Liking and subscribing helps the channel out. And if you could do that, I'd really appreciate it. And otherwise, until next week, take care, stay safe, have fun with your DIY projects, and I'll see you next Saturday.